Welcome to BJA Today. I am live at the International Christian Film Festival. I had to just stop and soak that in, y'all. This is so exciting. It's so much fun, and I get to meet and re-meet, if you will, some wonderful people. And with me today on BJA Today is Don't Say My Name stars, Brooklyn Whitmer, who is just an amazing face, and we'll talk more about that, and the esteemed actor, Cameron Arnett, who happens to be my husband as well. So I love having you all here with me, and thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you both here, but I want to really get into the discussion of this film, Don't Say My Name. It's an important piece, a strategic piece. It is for such a time as this. Brooklyn, tell us a little bit about the film.
Oh my goodness, I love that you said for such a time as this, because I truly believe that this film is so important these days. Our film is about a young girl who was trafficked by her mother's boyfriend, and I play this young girl. Her name is Adriana, and she goes on a journey into after the rescue. So she was trafficked, so this film kind of takes you into the journey of her finding herself after being rescued from that. And so it's a lot of deep emotions, a lot of things that she has to walk through just to figure out who she is really, and can she find forgiveness after this, and can she find healing? Because that's such a hard thing to walk through after going through such horrific things in her life.
And you're starring in this film.
Yeah.
And you're walking this scene to scene out.
Yes.
And I know, Cameron, you're in this film as well, and you have two totally different roles, two totally different ways of viewing this story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you go through something like this, we celebrate making films. We celebrate, being actors and doing all these kind of things. But when you handle a topic, even though you're going through the process of being grateful to God for being in the film and being able to work with and collaborate with great actors and everything else, but again, you're also remembering that you're telling a story that you prayerfully, wish that you didn't have to tell.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That, this is not the kind of thing that we want to make a life of having to deal with, but if we don't give ourselves to the film, then there's no possible way that those kind of things will be resolved. Mm-hmm. And so Brooklyn and I had the opportunity to have some great scenes to be, in the film and be able to bring this to light to the masses. And we pray that people just get involved, because the whole point is not just to make more films like this. The whole point is to get our audience involved in life and understand these are things that are happening to their children and their wives, and with young men that are being trafficked and everything else. So get involved and do something about it, and get involved with films like this that bring the awareness to everyone.
Cameron, you've played a lot of different parts. You've been in a lot of different films, but this character was a little different.
It was, like I said, the depth in which you have to go, and you're giving yourself to seeing horrific things that are happening, and especially when you're dealing with children. And the film is like a composite of many different aspects of many different stories put into one. And so we want people to know that though it is not a true to life film in that it is a true story, it is a true stories. Mm-hmm. And so that makes it even more impactful when you understand that these are things that are happening to people every day, to children every day. Mm-hmm. And even though I get an opportunity to be a hero role, mm-hmm. but I don't want to have to save people.
Exactly.
In this
right.
kind of a situation.
Right.
And so we can collaborate as not only filmmakers but as audience, and to bring an understanding, an awareness, but also a resolve. We need to be more aware. We need to be able to see and get involved in each other's lives in such a way as to now not explain away the things that we see happening. And I think you could probably speak to that as well, Brooklyn, in a sense of even playing your role in how people just let they see things, but they let it go.
In your situation, that your character sees a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, with this young girl, I feel like she had to go through so much, and I don't know. I feel like it really tore me apart, honestly, just to be able to walk through that with her. I had to like find who I was in this journey, and so it almost makes me cry because it's just so horrific, just what she had to go through.
Brooklyn, it obviously affects you, and I understand that. I also understand that you yourself are a young woman.
Yeah.
And as Cameron said, we don't want to make movies about this. We want this to go away. This not to happen, so movies are not necessary.
Right.
But as you played this role, how did you keep from going to where you are right now? To be able to get it out, to get those lines out.
I think I had to just really find myself, like, it's okay not to be okay. And I think that to let myself go, like to let other things in my life. And so like it was a personal journey as much as it was with Adriana. And so it was just one of those things that you have to let go of yourself, of the things that you're holding back, because to be able to bring new things in, you have to release things. And so with Adriana, I feel like she had to find with her healing that she could let go of those things. It's not her. That's not anything that she's done. It's things that were done to her, and it's not her story. It's not who she has to be. She is restored and she is renewed, and so she can walk in that. And so, yeah.
I love that. You know, there's something that we like to not talk about, is it happened next door. It happened in our own neighborhood. It happened to maybe us. When we come back, we're going to tear into those things that we don't want to talk about, that we don't really want to deal with. It's uncomfortable. But as Cameron said, we really shouldn't have to even deal with it because it shouldn't exist. We'll be right back.
Every day,
Millions of people
are connecting.
and even though we're overcoming obstacles,
watching each other's backs,
and banding together.
we should still make an effort.
We should still make an
to
effort.
get to know each other,
On a deeper level.
Father,
cosplayer,
Mentor.
actor.
it's time we take a step forward
It's time we take a step forward.
Come together.
and discover
How accepting our differences
can make us stronger.
We are live at the International Christian Film Festival with BJAToday. There's excitement in the air, you guys. You hear the buzz of voices all over the building. And that's because people are connecting on different projects, on content building, on all the things necessary to tell the story that God has given them to tell. So it is an exciting time. And we're just going to continue with our story right here, right now. It's called Don't Say My Name. And it's an intense story. And my guests are Brooklyn and Cameron, and they are stars of the film. And you guys, you know, we were getting into that place where we were talking about, Brooklyn, that it affects you to play that kind of role. And Brooklyn, let me say this, and I'm just going to put this in here. You have the face of a 12-year-old. You absolutely do. But you're a grown woman.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but so you have this backstory going on. I know I'm a
Yeah.
grown woman, but I'm an actor
Yes.
playing a young woman.
Yeah.
How old was the character?
We kind of portrayed her as like maybe 15, 16, so like the teen years. So, yeah.
So you had to flip off this grown woman in all of life and turn on this vulnerable 15-year-old
Yeah.
who's going through this journey. Where do you pick up to be able to tell her story with such ease?
Yeah. I think what it is that we know that she is a young girl, and so with her thought process, it's a lot about I don't know. I think she's just kind of lost. She just doesn't really know where to turn in a lot of ways, and she feels like she has to guard herself. So she's just kind of figuring who she really is, honestly, at this age. And so to have this on top of everything that she's going through is just so much to deal with. And so I think it's so cool that with this movie we're talking about the healing, and that we're gonna bring in like how does that look like in her life. And so like as a child and as a young girl, you know, that journey, it looks different than any other age. And so with this, it's like that young side of life, and how can she like move on and find her identity that's true and not broken.
You know, this speaks so greatly, Cameron, to one of the things that I know you're about, which is saving destinies. And you know, you come into this film as, without telling everything,
Yes.
you come into this film with such a grit and such a power, and you see all these little faces of these young girls. And how did you deal with that, knowing in your real life that you are a man who is CEO of this concept, of this movement called Saving Destinies?
It's painful, but at the same time, part of what I know that I was able to bring to the character is an understanding of saving destinies, because we know that God has a purpose for this individual. God has a mission, a plan for that life. And not only are you saving the person from the issues that they're going through, the pain, but you're also saving the purpose that God has. The same way that we see Satan wanting to snuff out Jesus, snuff out Moses, and all of what was in them to become. You know, we understand from Jeremiah's perspective, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you.
Yes.
And so there's a purpose, there's a reason why God sent somebody into the earth. And so all these children that Satan is trying to kill, there's nothing new under the sun. And so when I look at her face, you know, that's what I see. And that's the passion I think that the character had to have for me, and bringing that through. So I pray that comes across, because really to me, that's what we're dealing with, is making sure that the very things that God wants out of these lives, that we, as those that God has walked through to a certain extent as adults, are able to safeguard the preciousness of these young lives, and give them the opportunity to be, you know, shot into their destiny the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at that, you know, you're a father. You know, you are a young woman who, you know, again with that face. I'm like amazed.
That's Helen of Troy.
I mean, I keep looking at her going, my goodness. But you know, the reality is this can happen to anyone. You know, years ago, people used to think that it was only happening to young girls, and that was never the truth. It's happening to boys and girls and women
And adults,
and
yes,
men
Yes.
that's right.
Yeah.
all over the world. This isn't new. This isn't new, ladies and gentlemen. This is something that has been going on for an extremely long time. And you can either sit back in your homes and say, oh, it's not in my home, and I'm going to send a check to that organization. But what has to happen is a change of heart in order to change your mind. And we're going to talk about how the story began and how the change has to be within each of us. We'll be right back.
What to expect when you're expecting
Like here.
a teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey.
Ready for the... Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
We are back live at the International Christian Film Festival. And, you know, you got to be ready, because this is the kind of festival that you never know what's going to happen. And joining us now for this talk about Don't Say My Name is our producer. Thank you so much, Marty, for being here.
Oh, thank you for catching me.
Yes,
right on time.
Snatching him out of the hall. That's how we do it. That's how Daddy did it. That's how we do it. Reel him in. You know, this is an amazing film, and though this man has let no one see the final cut, that's a producer's job. But you know, one of the things that we were talking about when you walked in is that we were talking about that this issue happens to children and adults. Several years ago, we saw two women in the Florida area snatched while taking their daily run. Normal moms.
Right.
Why was this story, Marty, so important for you to tell?
I think because people still think that this doesn't exist. You know, I was shocked. I did a trip to the UN, and we were talking about that, and they were shocked this exists. And I was like, well, if they are shocked this exists, what about the normal moms and dads?
This is a world issue. It's not just a United States issue.
Correct.
You know, Cameron, your dad.
Yeah.
Marty, your dad.
Yes.
This is happening to people all around us.
You know, for me, I know one of the things that I deal with when it comes to the adult aspect of this is because, you know, of course, we're married.
Yes.
And my thing is, you know, you did a segment a while back with Shannon Fields, and, you know, I was talking to Jill and saying the connection of husband and wife and how interwoven that is, and how it takes a God surgery to fill that space up. And so for me, when I think about this kind of subject, I deal with, wait a minute, every time that I'm with you and I see you walk away, I'm mindful, you know, and because I know I have to thank God that I have a God that is our keeper.
Amen.
But then I think about all the people who don't, you know, so I know who I trust in, but at the same time, I deal with the natural aspect of watching my wife that I'm so connected with walk away and thanking him for the impossibilities of that happening here, but yet still understanding the emotional side of it. So, you know, when we turn this to the adults, husband, wives, all those kind of things, we have to also understand that this kind of film is to bring awareness that, like you said, it's pervasive, and if the UN doesn't even understand that it exists, how much more some of the regular everyday adults that are just walking, living their lives are just oblivious to what is a possibility in their lives, and it's not until it affects them that they actually see how hard it is.
You know, we love telling this story from a different angle. There are a lot of trafficking movies out there.
Yeah.
But this one is very different because we want to show a different side that has not really been shown. Most trafficking movies will show the problem, right? And then they will show a rescue. But we never see what happens to the survivor after the rescue or after they've escaped. And we want to tell that. That's the story we're telling.
That is why this particular story intrigues me so much. You know that I'm a college professor.
Yes.
and I teach a lot of students. Over the past 10 years or so, I've probably had 5 that I can think of that were trafficked and came back into the university and the college system in order to go to school. And how hard it was to get back into this reality versus the reality that they had gone through. This is an important story, but it's not just a story.
Correct.
It has to, in order to activate it, doesn't it have to become a movement?
Yes. Because at the end of the day, once you know, you can't unknow.
That's it.
And then what are you going to do once you know? Are you going to just stand by and say nothing and do nothing? Or are you going to speak up and say something to your neighbors, your friends, your kids? You know, we have to say something. We have to create this movement. It's not about this movie, really. It's about what's going on. How can we stop what's happening?
You guys, thank you so much. You two are doing something fantastic in this film. And they won't tell me a thing. Okay? We'll be back. Thank you so much.
First, they said cigarettes were safe. Now, they say they didn't market e-cigarettes to teens. Fact. More than 1 in 4 high school students are vaping. Same lies, different day. Tell Big Vape to quit lying.
Hello and welcome back. We are live at the International Christian Film Festival. I've got 2 wonderful actors with me from Don't Say My Name. We've got Tony and Corey. Guys, say your last names for me so I won't mess it up. Okay, let me try it. Rosillo.
Perfect.
Case.
You got it.
I did?
You got it. Perfect.
Amazing. The exciting part about this film is that there's some wonderful actors, and you two guys, totally different characters. I know you're not going to tell me much of anything, so I don't know how this interview is going to work, y'all. You know, like I said, it's live. You get what you get, and they've been real hush mouth. What we do know, guys, we do know this is a story of a young girl who's been trafficked. We do know that, but we don't know much more. Can you tell us anything about your characters?
Well, I think you got it right. We are diametrically opposed.
Ah.
In fact, when I was cast, I called my mother and I said, hey, I got this role. And they said, oh, what is it? And I said, well, I'm the bad guy. She goes, well, how bad? And she's like, oh my God, could they not cast you in such an opposing role to who you are? And I said, well, it's called acting, Ma. And she's like, oh, okay. and he's a real good guy. And
I played the boyfriend of the girl who's been trafficked and spend a lot of the film trying to figure out what happened.
You know, it's interesting that you play the boyfriend good guy, and your background, I just got to ask, you do some crazy films, dude. Talk to us about your background.
Yeah, well, I've done a little drama, a little action, a little horror.
Horror is what I was talking about.
Yeah, I've done some different things. So this one is, I mean, I guess it's not make-believe horror. This is more of a real life horror. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
As you all look at your backgrounds and look at this film, and you bring it up, Corey, it's different. It's not an easy story to tell. Tony, how did it affect you, and how is it different from the things you've done in the past?
Well, I'm connected with some people who do some rescue.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a little familiarity beforehand. And what goes on, I call sex trafficking the nefarious underbelly of
It
America.
is, yes.
And people really don't understand how many people are out there, how many children are out there being trafficked right now, and how to get into it. And they're from various socioeconomic backgrounds. They can be taken because they're runaways. They can be taken because you got a good girl and a bad girl, and the good girl wants to hang out with the bad kids.
Yes.
And the next thing you know, somebody with a drug problem and a drug debt decides to trade her to, make his debt whole.
Wow.
And they're gone. So it's not talked about enough. And if this was talked about as much as some other problems in our society, people would be shocked.
That's so cool, because when you look at doing a story like this, there are, there's so many traffic stories out there, but this one is different. Corey, what did you see that made it different for you personally?
I can't say I've ever seen you have your central protagonist who is trafficked, but this film shows the people around her and how it affects, family, and it tells his story a little bit, even, and how he got into it. I don't know if I'm...
It's a little bit about that.
A little bit about that.
A little bit about that comes out.
Yeah. So yeah, it's different in that aspect, is that it follows the others and that are searching for her, and that it affects multiple people. You know?
When you take a look at your everyday lives, you guys, and we now know that this happens in so many different layers in the United States, and there are hot spots in the United States. But there's also points that we have to deal with around the world, that there are people, adults and children, being trafficked out of Atlanta, Georgia's airport, because we have the largest airport, out of areas that have great travel systems where they can get out of town quickly. We're seeing numbers rise in ways we've never seen before. Or do you think it's that we're seeing it for the first time because we have cell phones?
Well, I'm not sure how much I can reveal from the movie, but I feel like it's important to say this. I remember it was on, I believe, day one of the film, We were shooting a courtroom scene, and there was someone who I thought was acting that was in deep tears during the scene, and after the scene I was saying, man, they did a really great job acting. They had called cut, and this person was still in tears and continued to be in tears, and come to find out they'd had an experience with what the film is about, and that's where it came from, and that's when it hit me. This is wow, that's...
It's a story that people may not be ready for.
And if I could comment on that, because
Yes.
that's been on my mind since that scene. And I won't tell too much about that person, but the person had been trafficked. The trafficker was never brought to justice. And she saw
Still
me
holds
up there, as the trafficker.
Wow.
An incredibly humbling experience for me, because she came up and she gave me a hug and thanked me. And I said, wow, this lady has some courage.
This is what that kind of film should get us to. Guys, thank you so much for being here. What it should get us to is Don't Say My Name should never have to be said ever again. It should never have to be a teardrop. It should never have to be a moment that a young man or a young woman has to cry out, because from this moment, we take action. I only have about 30 seconds. I need to know who wrote this piece, because it's intense. For every little piece that I've heard, it's so intense.
Yes. So Patricia Landolfi wrote this story, and she came to me about this story. I'm like, we have got to tell this story. We have got to tell this story. And then, they sent me the script, and I read it, and I sort of tweaked it.
Yeah.
And we went back and forth, back and forth.
And her husband directed it.
And her husband, Federico, did a great job directing it. And it was such a great team that we have. We could not have a better team for this movie.
Here's what I saw, and I'll say it to you. There are people who came together to tell the story of Don't Say My Name. They weren't just telling fluff. They weren't just telling a feel-good story. They weren't telling you a solution story. They were telling you a story to make you stop, think, and move. When you see it, take action, because it's not told for you to sit back and say, oh, that's terrible. It's time to take action, and it's time is now. I'm BJ Arnett. This is BJA Today. Thank you for joining.